Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another interview episode here. Today, I have with me special guest all the way from the West Coast. This is the first not international interview I've done in a while to talk about Moonray, Journey to the Moonray. I think public investing and all of that fun stuff. To get us started, do you please mind introducing your name and generally what we're here to talk about?
Yeah, so my name is Rodrigo, and I'm the founder of Element 115, which is a small indie video game studio, and we're working on two titles. Our main title is Moonray. It's a third-person action RPG that'll be coming out probably in about a year and a half. And this year, we're going to be releasing like a small arcade twin-stick shoot 'em up, like as a prequel called Journey to Moonray.
So I kind of want to jump there, right? So I think when we started talking, I was just sort of talking about Moonray, and then we then started talking again a couple weeks ago, and you introduced this Journey to Moonray. Is this do you view this as doing this as kind of a way to get Steam kind of for the main game going, or why did you decide to kind of go down this, I think, interesting route of kind of surprise launching almost a prequel to the game that has been talked about for a while now?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we wanted to get something out there quicker, because Moonray is still going to take us a while to release. I think at least a year and a half. And we didn't want to wait that long to get something out into the market title using the same technology that we've developed for Moonray. So as we were developing Moonray, we've been doing a lot of things with algorithmic shaders and things like that. And we saw, well, there's a lot more that we can do with this technology than just what we're going to use it for in Moonray. So why don't we just do another, a small title that'll be fun. I've always really liked twin stick shooters. And it'll help us kind of, get our name out there, start building community, and just sort of, introduce ourselves to the public at large while we continue to work on our big title. So that's basically how that came about.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I just find it interesting because, especially for a team of your size, but it's not obviously, I think infamously, people talk about how that happened with Metal Gear, right? Where they did Phantom Pain, and before that you had whatever the pre-5 was called. That's a team of hundreds of people. You're a team of a few. How much did kind of that pivot affect stuff like the timeline of the game? So obviously, in my head, that had to have pushed Moonray back farther. So it's kind of a give and take happening.
Yeah, I mean, it really didn't affect us that much on Moonray because we had a separate gameplay team. So the gameplay was developed separately. The visual effects team is the same, but we're basically using a lot of the things that we already used for Moonray. So we already had, these algorithms developed. We're just using them in different ways. So, I'd say 80% of the work was basically already done. So it wasn't that difficult of a pivot for us.
Very surprising just because I think it would be expected the opposite, just because obviously staffing and just dealing with QA certifications. So let's kind of jump there. I think we've kind of walked around it. But for people who don't know, then what would you describe? What is Moonray?
So Moonray is it's sort of like our vision of what an advanced technology would really look like. So I'm not very big. I just think there's a lot of sci-fi out there, but it's all near future. So it's things are still. It's kind of like Star Wars type of sci-fi, where things are built out of pieces and panels, and spaceships have nuts and bolts on them and rivets and things like that. And that to me isn't that advanced. That's not really an advanced technology. That's just our technology extrapolated forward a couple hundred years. So Moonray is our idea of what would a really advanced technology look like. We think that a really advanced technology would have complete control over matter. So things would be, it's almost like they're 3D printed or grown. Things aren't made out of pieces. So there's no panels, nothing like that. I think it would be very simple, and things would look very simple. So that's why we have a lot of just very simple geometric shapes in the game.
Why
that to me feels
simple? I'm curious kind of that. Is it because in your head at that point we don't care about the looks of things as much, or kind of why would you kind of go down that road?
Sorry, Mike, I lost you there. Our connection went bad.
Yeah,
say that again?
I was say why going down that simple look? Is it to you kind of at that point the look of things matter less to the beings that exist, kind of, or like why that kind of like, because I think it's a trend in a lot of like future sci-fi that has this kind of simply mattery look to it.
I just think that's more, I think when you really achieve, I mean, I think a lot of the things that we make look are limited by our means of production. So they have to look a certain way because we can't actually make things that are simple. I mean, to me, there's nothing more pure than just basic geometry. Spheres, cubes, triangles, and things like that. In a really advanced civilization, we'll be able to make anything they wanted to out of those shapes. So to me, it just feels more advanced to go simple. And when things look more complex, that's usually, to me, that just looks like a less advanced technology. So that's why what we're trying to do with the game is give it more of an organic feel. So we have this whole idea of the fluids in the game. I don't know if you've seen any of the latest clips where we're starting to show off, the fluid deformations that we've done. That to me is what something that's advanced would do. It would have complete control over matter. So there's no separation anymore between things that are biological or mechanical. That distinction just disappears. Everything is sort of made out of the same stuff. And if you have complete control over it, you can make it look any way you want. And that's kind of what we're trying to get across with this, which is why we've given it, a lot of people say it looks surreal, which it does. But that to me is what an advanced civilization would do. And if you follow any of the news that's coming out lately, like if you follow any of the UFO stuff that's happening now, and like reports of swarms of pyramids following Navy destroyers off the coast of the U.S., that's when you know flying pyramids, that's an advanced technology. If it looks like a plane, it's not that advanced.
Wow, that's a very interesting way to look kind of at it. It reminds me of, it's gonna sound like a weird combo. So it looks like you guys are using Unreal. I don't know if it's Unreal, but on the Unity side, are you familiar with like the Omni Fluid or Omni, all those kind of like plugins tools?
I don't think so.
I was gonna say, it very much reminds me of that feel and look of kind of like those tools that are either made for making fabric or liquid or whatever, and it very much reminds me of that one. Meets like Warframe. It's kind of what I see when I kind of see you looking at your game.
I've heard the Warframes comparison a lot. I mean, I think that's probably valid. I'm not super familiar with that game. I mean, I'm vaguely familiar with it, but I haven't played it. But yeah, all of the things that we're doing with algorithms are all physics simulations. So they're all various types of fluid simulations, essentially. The thing is, with a fluid, when you say fluid, people immediately think of water, and that's just one type of fluid. I mean, really, there's a lot of different types of fluids, and that's kind of what we fluid, and it's a random fluid every time you load a level. And that's where we really went nuts with the algorithms. We have right now over 700 different varieties, and we're adding probably another 500 or 700 in the next few weeks. And so what I really like about it is that things move in a fluid way, but they don't necessarily look like a fluid. In other words, we have algorithms that look like mountains, but the mountains flow. So think it's almost like, like erosion. So fluid can be kind of like a deceptive term because you just immediately think of water, but there's a lot of different types of surfaces or looks you can get that are underneath the hood actually fluid. And all that means is that then you can morph them and change them, and you can just make them behave in things that are totally, kind of crazy and really difficult to describe. But when you see it, you'll recognize that it's like, oh yeah, it's moving fluidly, but it's sharp cracks, so it's like you have mountain cracks that are moving fluidly. So I mean, I really like it a lot. For me, that's the kind of stuff that I like to do.
It's just interesting to me because my immediate concern as someone who would develop that is processing. I think it's kind of where my head goes, and just the immediate limitation of the processors of machines that this would be on. Have you guys ran into those kind of problems, or have you kind of tried to find ways to top level limit that concern?
We haven't really gotten very deep into the optimization phase yet, but we're running 60 frames per second, with not too many problems on, like a mid-level PC. All this stuff happens on the GPU, and GPUs are really powerful now. And we're designing more thinking of, for Moonray especially, what's going to be a mid-level PC in a year and a half or 2 years. So we're really not concerned with that too much, and we really haven't had any issues. So 60 frames a second hasn't really been a problem. You actually have a lot more problems running AI. And running, a lot of enemies on screen. That causes slowdown, a lot worse than the algorithms that we're doing.
That's surprising, actually. I guess it makes sense being on the top line GPU. I just didn't think of that because to me, it's just one of those things where like that has to just be like I'm running a trailer, as we'll get to in a second on the Republic site, the top line trailer kind of in my background, kind of as we're talking, and just
Hmm.
looking at all that stuff. I guess it's very interesting that I kind of want to jump to kind of the gameplay. We've kind of talked about this top line, kind of how the world's generated, but like, less about what you do in the world. Um, it seems like your big selling point is this kind of fluid nature of gameplay and how kind of everything interacts with each other. Where did you really draw inspiration from when developing this?
Well, I've always been a fan of open world games, but we don't want to do an open world game. It's just that's going to be just too difficult. And then there's also you don't really need open world necessarily. So we're doing kind of like a hybrid. They're going to have a rough linear design where you do have, different, you got to get from point to point. But within that large level, you have a lot of freedom. You can go in different directions and you can do it in a different order if you want. So we're doing kind of like a hybrid between, a linear game and an open world game. One of the things that I'm just not so into anymore is games where you're essentially, you're essentially in a tunnel the whole time. Even if you're outside, you can move 6 feet to the left, 6 feet to the right, but that's it. And you really can only move forward. You're basically like on rails,
So a Call of Duty
which
shoot
is
campaign, I think, is kind of the best example of that. Is it feels like you're still level choice, but you're going from A to B, and you really only have so much wiggle room.
exactly. So it's really a linear game, and you could just be in a tunnel the whole time, But it's just like instead of a tunnel, they just okay. It looks like you can look off into the distance, but you really can't go there. So our levels are big. You can go anywhere you want, but then there is a structure of like, you got to get from checkpoint A to checkpoint B. But, if you want to do it in a crazy way, that's fine. Do whatever you want. So we're going to have relatively few levels, but the levels are going to be quite large. And one of the things that we're working on now is exactly how large we can do them before we start running into like level streaming issues. So maybe we'll do level streaming, maybe we won't. It's kind of something that we're playing around with, and Unreal's technology is changing a lot with that regard too. So that's kind of still in the air as to how we'll come down on that. But we're putting together the first level now, the first real level now. So in the next couple of months is when we're going to have to kind of decide exactly what's the real size of one of our levels going to be. But I want it to be big, so I want it to feel like an open world in a sense, but without the all the technical challenges of doing a true open world.
So
Which also I
to
think.
I was gonna say to me,
Oh,
when I think of these kind of worlds that you're describing, tell me if I'm off base. I think of like Dishonored levels or something like that, where it's kind of like, or in a Hitman level, it's an open itself, but you still have constraints because it's tied to a level.
yeah, that's I think that's a good I think it's a good analogy.
Yeah, that's it. I can see to me that it's a good double-edged sword you're having there, right? I feel like there's a lot more handcrafting that has to happen. And because of you're tightening these up, it's going to notice a lot more if it's I don't say lazy, but if there's inherent bad design there. But the other thing is because you can control these individual levels one at a time, I can see now you have a lot more room to kind of play around because you control the size of the space. So you're like, it's like I don't need all of the world to generate at once. I could just kind of generate this 5 by 10 square versus however big the entire game would be.
Yeah, it is a challenge in level design and in gameplay design in general because we have to kind of balance. So, I mean, the way that we're handling it now is that there's large open areas, but sometimes we will, to get to somewhere else, we'll constrict it. You have to pass through, maybe it's a building, because it's very different making combat, and doing artificial intelligence for enemies that have a world where they can run around anywhere, or the kind of narrow combat that you'll see in like a typical Souls-like title. So that's something that we have to balance, but we're kind of doing an approach where there's points where the gameplay space becomes constricted, and that's a different feel to combat, and there's areas where it becomes a little bit more open, and that's kind of a different feel to combat and to gameplay as well. So we can kind of balance the two out and just take the player kind of where we want them to go to a degree. So, there'll be something that you have to do. You have to get to this checkpoint. And then we know that, okay, that means that when you get into the space, we can really control it very tightly in there. Outside that space, you can do whatever you want.
How much are you concerned that the player will be drawing to the player if you kind of tighten it, or you're gonna try to like purposely be like, oh, you walked in a cave, the cave collapsed, and that's how we control it. Because like to me, I feel like one of the issues with that immediately is unless there's a reason for it, the player would feel very upset if they feel like they should have more freedom than you give them in a moment.
Well, it's going to be more like, you're going to, we'll handle it like with architecture, for example, like when you need to get into an area and it's in some sort of architectural building, then by nature, it's just a tighter space. But you have to get through it, right? So then it's just kind of, it's just natural. It's kind of the way the real world is. Like you walk around, sometimes you walk around outside, but then you go into a building, it's just going to be tighter inside that building. So we don't want to do like gimmicky things like that, where it's just like, we're kind of like artificially restricting the player. It's just going to be in the design of the environment itself that just naturally some areas are going to be a little bit smaller and tighter, and then some areas will open up.
That's very interesting. Let's kind of jump to what I think is very interesting. So I think you're the first group anyone I've had on that we've had Kickstarters on, we've had Patreons on. We've never had someone on Republic, which on the back end I think is Fig, if I remember correctly, for video games.
Yeah.
On. I'm kind of curious if we could kind of talk about kind of your decision as a founder, kind of to go on this compared to like the Kickstarter or Patreon route. So people don't know, Republic, just like Fig before it, you invest in a product, but it's truly like investing where there are like actual stock equivalencies you get back, and it's those kind of early seed rounding investing, but for the general public. What made you decide this being kind of the correct route to go?
Well, one of the things I liked about Fig is I like that it's more of a curated approach. So that felt that felt kind of good to me in that they have a very focused let's say portfolio or whatever it is that you want to call it. And they're going through a lot of changes too. They were just acquired by Republic, in the last year. For the second game. So we may be like one of the only games now that you can actually invest in, I think. I don't know of any other platforms that are doing this. I think most other platforms are more just like Kickstarter with rewards, or it's just Patreon and you're just donating money. So that to me, it just felt more like, okay, we want to build a business, and then that's just a normal way to fund a business. You get investors, right? Just because it's a video game doesn't mean that we have to do, why can't we just be like a normal business like everyone else? These platforms are growing, and it just seemed viable to me. So, it seemed like, hey, it's worth a shot, and so far it's working.
Talking right now on the 14th, and you're at 98% of your minimal funding, which shows see, I think working for the correct term there. So what I find interesting about this as a platform versus like the other things is there's a maximum cap, I appreciate, on the money you can raise also, which I assume controls things like scope inherently.
Yeah, and and one of the things is this is an investment. In other words, we got to pay it back, right? So that's why we set a max. I mean, that max is, we're not going to get to that max, but just because you want to have some sort of upward limit, that's kind of like basically that's the amount we said. If everything just went gangbusters and we got that amount of money, we'd be comfortable. And we think that we can, deliver a game that will return that amount of money to the investors. So, I mean, we're just approaching this as, as any business would. And investors, there's always, there's always a minimum and a maximum. So the minimum is there because that's what triggers all the legal arrangements. That's what actually makes the investment, I guess, take hold, let's say. And then the max is because we got to pay it back.
Sense. One of the things we don't realize about that stuff is, because even being on there too, like there are terms like once there's a certain threshold, like, you guys owe that money, kind of. Is there so like this versus like Kickstarter, I think is the best direct comparison. Is there any level of legal headaches that you didn't expect going through this process? Or are you still kind of unfolding those as we're talking?
Yeah, I mean, it has been complicated, and it's been slow, a little slower to get going than I was expecting, because this is an investment platform and it's open to the public. The SEC is involved, so we have to handle all sorts of SEC regulations, and the SEC has to approve everything. And that's where working with someone like Republic is super helpful. I mean, that's what they know how to do. So, they're really handling most of the legal stuff, but the legal stuff does impact us. So yeah, it is more complicated, but then I also think it's a little better because as, on the investment side, if you're an investor, there are legal protections in there. We've all heard the horror stories about Kickstarter, and you give your money and anything could happen. At least here, it's an investment just like, any other type of investment that you would make into a company. So there are legal safeguards for the investors, which I think gives people a little bit of confidence. I just think it's the right way to do it.
And maybe you can answer it because I actually don't know. I know some of the platform, I don't understand how fully it works. So when people invest, kind of, I know they get like a payout once the game does certain markers or whatever. Is that a continual payout, or is it kind of like once you pay out that investor, they're kind of paid out? I actually don't understand how that part works.
On Republic itself, there's different ways of doing it, and different companies will do it differently. Some companies on Republic are just like startups, just like, and they're doing, there's companies like food companies, there's energy companies, there's medical companies. And with those, you might be investing, it's like an equity investment. It's like you're buying a share, right? So then it's just much more like buying stocks. With us and with a video game, what this is a share of a licensing agreement between us and Republic. And as an investor, you get basically a schedule of a certain amount of payouts for a certain period of time. It is essentially how it works. So it is time limited, and basically the percentage. It's a licensing agreement that we have with them. So they take a certain percentage of the sales until they make a certain return, and then they take a lesser percentage for a certain period of time. And so that's how it works. So if everything works perfectly, investors will make a really good return. Now, if
I understand the time frame is a little bit different, but it's kind of like you go, okay, if I'm an investor, when I put in X money, I get whatever it is, 1% of profit from this 1 year period or whatever it kind of it's those kind of ideas, I assume.
basically, that's essentially it. It's really, it's sort of like, anyone that invests in the campaign is becoming a little bit of a publisher. It's very similar to a publishing deal. Actually, the terms for us are better than a typical publishing deal, which is one of the things that I like about Fig. Publishers their terms can be not so great for a studio. But if you're investing, it's basically like it's more like you're buying a stake in a publisher is really what you're doing. And you're co-publishing this alongside Fig if you're an investor.
That makes perfect sense. So let's kind of to wrap this up then, if people wanted to check out the game or your prequel or invest on Republic, where the people all go?
So the Republic campaign, it's republic.co, so republic.co/Moonray. That's where anyone can invest. And there are some rules, especially we've had some trouble with overseas investors. There's like some rules around how you identify yourself and things like that. Like you have to have There's a little bit of work you have to do, but it's pretty simple. And to follow along with our development in the game, moonray.game. That's where we have all the information about both titles, and that's where all our social media links are.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you for taking time out of your morning to talk to me about the game. Just to clarify, everyone, we're not telling you if you should or shouldn't, as the SWW show, invest, but it's worth checking out on Republic. Go and check out all this stuff, and then keep an eye out for Journey to the Moonray, out later this year on just Steam, was it?
Yeah, initially Steam, but we want to take it to consoles as well, so it's something that we're working on.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you for your time today.
Hey, thanks, my pleasure.
This episode is partially brought to you by the Humble Choice program. Did you know Humble Bundle has a great monthly subscription service that lets you get a ton of video games every single month? That's right, from plans range from $5 to $20 a month, you get a hold of a bunch of free games they have available to you. And you could use our code down in the description below to go and sign up. It would help our podcast and help you see what great games are available for you this month.
Hello everyone and welcome to another interview special. It's me, AJ. I I have Jake here from PogoChamp. I was like, Do I tell everyone that I got my first Fauci-ouchie? Or do I save that?
I think you tell them.
Yeah.
You gotta humble brag.
Yeah, gotta humble brag. I got the good one. I think. I don't know. I feel like Twitter within a week was like, the Pfizer one is the one everybody wants. Like, you're a cool kid if you got the Pfizer one. And then, like, by the end of the week, it was, no, you want the Moderna one. And I'm like, as long as it's not the Johnson & Johnson one, like, I've heard good things about either. So,
yeah,
like, I don't care which one I get. Just
getting any of them is pretty good.
Yeah, instead of, I don't know, rolling the dice.
Yeah.
Somebody, I forget who I was talking to, they're like, it was my mom. She goes, are you sure you want to get it? You know, there hasn't been research. I'm like, honestly, if it means my life can go back to somewhat normal, like, you know, I really don't care.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
I still haven't gotten mine, but that's just because all of the appointments are booked out everywhere.
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel like kind of, this is a very interesting way to start an interview, but the zeitgeist is that California seems to be doing a lot of them. It's just there's so many people in the state that...
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, with 33 million people in the state.
Yeah, it's hard to...
There's a lot of vaccine to give out.
Yeah, and especially with, you know, what is it? Pfizer's is 100 below or something like that, and it's only good for 48 hours or something like that once it's out of the freezer. And so, okay. I'm starting to see kind of the complications that could arise when you have that many people and you're just trying to get as many as you can.
Yep.
But
soon enough.
On a more lighthearted note, we're here to talk about PogoChamp, a game that when I was playing it, I have to ask you this. This is the first question I'm going to ask you. Mm-hmm. Do you love QWOP?
So I love the idea of QWOP. I really respect Bennett Foddy and his like crazy game development sort of ideology where you make these really weird games with weird controls. But I don't actually like to play QWOP.
Well, that's fine. I feel like that's everybody's opinion of that game is really, really cool idea. Hate to play it.
Yeah, exactly. So I like with PogoChamp, I tried to take what makes QWOP and QWOP-like games cool and make it sort of more accessible.
Yeah, because it's for those that don't know, it's a pogo stick. So the way that you capture kind of the physics, like the just straight physics puzzle of a QWOP, where it's like you need to overcome the hurdle, both literally and figuratively, of figuring out how to move. And in this, it's a lot easier. It's okay, you hold a button, he springs down, and then you release it and he launches. But you still have that kind of, like, you've simplified, okay, we can get moving, but you've kept kind of the, randomness isn't the right word because it's clearly using physics, but kind of that uncertainty of a QWOP where, you know, okay, we're moving, but what next? And with this, I was like, okay, I can figure this out. I can get up over something, but I can't, like, figuring out kind of the short movements. Right? Mm-hmm. It's very similar. The reason I asked about QWOP is because once I got done playing this, I was like, let me go back to QWOP and see if see how, not necessarily how alike these are, but how kind of can my brain wrap around the physics aspect of it? And
Yeah.
it was the same thing I was having with PogoChamp of I could cover large distances in in a few number of steps or springs, but trying to like do the minute adjustments of, okay, I need to get here so then I can make this jump. And if I'm not quite there, figuring out the little, okay, how do I kind of inch forward? I was like, I can't figure this out.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to. Just for everybody listening, so that you have sort of a sense of the game. PogoChamp is this 3D platformer that I made where you're a crash test dummy on a pogo stick, and you can't get off the pogo stick. You can only tilt yourself and jump. And the faster you hit the ground, the higher you can jump. So you can jump infinitely high, and you have to like flip yourself around the level to try and get to like a goal zone. Every level is like a pretty small self-contained thing with a goal area, and the sort of mechanics of the game are you just sort of experiment with the physics in order to propel yourself to the goal.
I will say that's I guess the only reason I can think of QWOP is because that's like, to me, that is kind of the poster child of these.
Yeah. Yes. It defined the genre.
Yeah. These, I guess, sports-based physics games. Like.
Yeah, I think of it like QWOP is sort of the base model for games like Octodad or I Am Bread, games like that sort of took the QWOP idea of make this game with these sort of weird controls that are like physicsy and goofy, but then like make a real game out of them. And this, I think of this as sort of in that lineage.
I say, because it's not really, it's not Portal or Half-Life where the game revolves around like hardcore physics puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it's much more of a lighthearted take on that, and yeah, I guess like I'm sure there was somebody before QWOP that put something out that was like, oh, here's the the base Unity like skeletal structure, and physics attached to it or whatever. But it was, kind of, it was also interesting because like when you look at, or at least when I look at QWOP, it's like, to me, that was the first viral anything.
Yeah,
right?
it's
like,
very old school.
Like, I can't even remember viral videos before. Like, QWOP was just like, you get into the computer lab in like 4th or 5th grade, and somebody just knows the website to QWOP. And then, everybody played that. And, it was, at least to me, it was kind of I knew YouTube existed, but it was kind of like, well, I guess it was pre-YouTube virality, right? It was.
Yeah, the early days of the internet, sort of, where everybody's sort of getting used to the idea that, like, there's cool stuff out here.
And it was, I guess, the interesting thing about that time period that we don't get anymore, and it's kind of, when you look back, it's very nostalgic in a way, like, because people were still trying to figure it out, stuff lasted longer.
Right.
Like, QWOP was years of it felt like it got handed down, right? Like somebody's older brother found out about it, and then they told their younger brother, who told his friends. So it's kind of, whereas now it feels like it's truly the 15 minutes of fame, because after 15 minutes something else is happening. So yeah, this is PogoChamp is kind of a fun return to, I guess, youth is kind of the right and the wrong word, right? Like,
I'll take it.
It's kind of a return to that mindset, and that, I guess mindset isn't the right word, but that time period in your life when you first discovered QWOP. Like that's a memory that I feel like a lot of people have. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the first time they experienced it, it was like, dude, I don't know how to do this. And I'm sure a lot of people got frustrated and just left it. But, it was definitely, when I was hopping around, pun not intended, but when I was hopping around PogoChamp, it was like, okay, you've kind of taken the idea of QWOP and turned it into a full game. Like, because as everybody knows, QWOP was like 110 meters,
right?
Supposedly, and that was it. And so it was just a time-based thing. Whereas you've taken kind of the stages of QWOP, the early stage of, okay, it's just a clear track, and then you add in, like, okay, here's one hurdle, now here's multiple hurdles, and then the finish line. And I really feel like the way that you did it and kind of introduced a lot of this stuff, while maybe at first it seems a little overwhelming, I guess. Like when you first fire up the game, it's like, oh man, what do I do? But I feel like you really nailed the like it's very intuitive in the sense that, yes, it seems like a lot, but then you realize it's really not a lot.
Yeah, I as the developer, I'm a little bit biased, but I sort of think of it as like the most intuitive, unintuitive game out there. Like it doesn't play like anything you've ever played before, but you kind of get it really quick, and it doesn't take a lot of explanation. And you won't be good at it immediately, but like you'll start to understand it without much hand-holding.
Yeah, you don't need a 2-hour tutorial of introducing all the mechanics. It's like, well, it's one button and one thumbstick.
Yeah, exactly. The first level shows you pretty much everything you need to know, and you start and there's just a wall, and it says tilt and like the left control stick, and jump, and then basically every other button on the controller will jump.
So that's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I was like, okay, I wonder, for me, I was like, okay, or the right trigger is going to be jump, because I feel like in games that kind of do simplified mechanics, it's always the left stick to move, which makes sense. That's been the standard for 20-something years.
Right.
The left stick to move, and it's always the right trigger, or A, or I guess on the Xbox controller it would be X or square on a PlayStation controller. Like those 3 buttons. And I was like, okay, I want somebody to just be like, the only thing that matters is the left thumbstick. Every other button does the same thing.
Yep. Yeah. I did that sort of as a joke, but also to enforce on myself this thing that I wanted to do, which is make it super simple. Like I wanted to make sure that I didn't add other buttons that do other stuff. So I was like, okay, all the buttons on the controller are jump. Like I can't add something weird anymore.
Yeah, you don't have like a hidden, oh, what does this button do? And then come to find out, like 20 levels on, oh, you've got a power up or something like that.
Yeah, you can't bust out your inventory or anything like that.
Right. Which, it's funny. So, I started playing PogoChamp, and then, like, a day or two later, I think it was, Sony put out Horizon Zero Dawn is free.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I'll download that, because why not? I never played it. And then I, like, kept playing PogoChamp for the rest of, like, 20 minutes or however long I played it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started Horizon Zero Dawn, and I'm like, this is a lot. And then I opened up Steam, and I'm like, PogoChamp is easy. Well, not easy is not the right word, but
right, but simple.
Yeah.
Sort of. Also, not quite the right word.
Yeah. Simplified. Well, whatever. Like, English is my first language, and I still don't know the right words.
Yeah, it's tricky to describe.
Yeah, but I feel like it's who was it? If you know, you know.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I say about this game is like I can't really describe it in words that well, but if you watch the first like 5 seconds of the trailer, I think you'll know exactly what the deal is with this game.
Yeah, it's what else is a perfect example of like you just need to see it. Like Octodad, like, bringing up Octodad, that's a game where I still don't know how to describe that game. Like,
yeah, right. You're an squid, octopus, but you're also a dad, and you like.
Everybody thinks you're a real person, but
your arms move around.
Yeah,
you got to move your arms around. I don't know.
And then you hand somebody the controller, and it's like, oh, that's what this is.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so let me pull this up here. Do you have a there it is? Release date for this? Because it's
so it launched into early access
right.
On the 12th. I don't have a firm release date for the 1.0. I'm hoping to get it done within the year.
Okay.
So sometime in 2021, but I still need to do a lot. There are 60 levels in the early access right now, and I want to hit 100 levels by the time my 1.0. So that's like almost double the amount of levels.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, this, just looking at this game, like, have you ever seen, who did was it Google or whoever, somebody did we told, like, here's how an AI would try to run. Like,
yeah.
Those GIFs of, like, it just, like, clambering over things and falling over all the time.
Yep.
I feel like this would be perfect viral marketing for whoever did that. I honestly forget who did it at the time, but I'm sure anybody that's working on AI has got something similar. Just like contact them, like slide into their Twitter DMs and be like, "Hey, remember this? What if we did this?"
Yeah, that would be pretty good. Early on, when I was coding it, I was like, I should make sure that this would be compatible with like a bot player, just in case.
To watch the like this is a game that I feel like it's gonna have a weirdly I guess it wouldn't necessarily be weirdly, but a very devoted fan base. Or like, I feel like these games kind of develop those. They're not big fan bases necessarily. Like you've had breakthrough hits like Octodad, and I'd imagine that's partially because it was on PlayStation Plus, so like everybody could play it. But like those games build these tight knit, very devoted fan bases, and then you get like bot assisted or tool assisted speed runs of these games, and I'm like, as you're talking through that, I'm like, I want to see that, like on a Games Done Quick. Just here's our hour block. We're gonna have an AI try to figure this out.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward. I hope at some point that people are both speedrunning it manually and with bots and stuff. That would be super cool.
I feel like that's got to be, as a small developer, like those things have to be kind of like milestones, I guess. Of like, we got our game on a GDQ.
Yeah, that would be huge.
Feather in the cap, like that's your, till the day you die, like that's a accomplishment that really not a lot of people get, like, because I feel like most of those GDQs are a lot of the same game. It's all the Marios, it's Sonics, it's kind of that stuff, but these left field, I guess, physics games get into that too. But it seems like there's only one, and it just alternates, right? Like 1 year it's Octodad, 1 year it's Moving Out, 1 year it's something else, and so I'm sure for you especially, like having this make a GDQ would be. I'll tell you what, even if it was at the 3 a.m. block, I was staying up to watch that because I just want to see.
Awesome.
I want to see the absurdity of...
That would be...
Yeah. The absurdity of the, like, playing through the levels that I have, like, a lot of games you can... It's kind of hard to see where the speedrun would be, unless you've obviously watched one of the game you're playing. Well, like, with this, I'm like, okay, somebody's going to figure out, like, a physics bug and just, like, literally fly through this game.
Yeah. The one thing about the game already is it's got leaderboard support. So each level, when you beat it, it'll submit your score to the leaderboard, but it'll also submit a replay of how you beat the level, and you can pop into the global leaderboard and watch anybody's replay from there. So the speedrunning, there's like a small speedrunning community already, and it's really funny to see how they will just watch each other's replays and iterate on how to beat levels faster and faster and faster. Just a few days ago, there was a level where I had talked to some of the speedrunners about it before, and we weren't sure that you could get under 8 seconds on that level. We were like, yeah, 8 seconds is probably pretty hard. And then one morning, I was like, let me see if I can do it. And I managed to get 7.9 seconds. And I posted in the Discord for the game, and I was like, hey, I beat your record. And by 10 a.m. that morning, people had beaten that record 4 times already.
Well, at least you have a healthy relationship with the speedrunners, because I feel like that's another thing that makes these games, like, that's their ultimate pass or fail, right? Like, does the developer have a good relationship with not just the community, but the community that's actively trying to break their game? You've seen kind of there's a backlash from some developers that are like, this is my life's work. You shouldn't be, trying to break it apart. And then you have, games like Big Rigs, where I think if you asked anybody that worked on Big Rigs, they'd be like, yeah, it's a piece of trash, and it's hilarious to watch these guys just destroy it. But
yeah, I love so far. I love watching the speedrunners do their thing. Nobody's figured out anything that like super breaks the game, so everybody is still playing it. But there's just so much, so much you can do when you're just playing the game normally to go faster, that there's a lot of room for like experimentation and improvement.
I guess that's a great question to kind of wrap this up on. Are you willing to allow like the true, just if somebody finds like the ultimate exploit, are you like of the mind of, okay, I'm fine with that? Or are you like, man, this really sucks now that they can beat it in like 2 seconds?
I mean, I guess it depends. Like if somehow there was some sort of like exploit where you didn't actually have to engage with the game, like if there was an exploit where you could beat all the levels without using the jumping mechanics, that does sort of defeat what I think of as the purpose of the game. But anything shy of that, I think, is fair game. Like just this morning, one of the speedrunners posted a clip of them beating this level where there's a fake wall made out of little tiles, and so you have to break through that wall in order to get to the goal. And he posted this thing where he jumped over to the wall and then like rolled over next to it and propped himself up on a piece of the wall such that the wall and he sort of flew forward, doing this like crazy surfing on the wall thing straight into the goal. And I was like, that's awesome. There's no way that I'm gonna fix that on purpose, at least.
Yeah, just be like, hey, as long as it still works, like that's the ingenuity needed to figure that out is such that I if it were my project and I saw that, I'd be like, dude, like awesome, I want to see that again.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Yeah, the only things that I've fixed that like impacted speedrunning stuff was there were a couple things where in order to get the world record, the like optimal strategy was actually to wait around for a while for like something to happen randomly and then start moving. And like that's just not fun. So I'll patch those out. And there's like one issue where you could warp through, like glitch through the bottom of a platform. But other than that, like janky physics bug type things that you still have to sort of play the game to use, those are awesome.
Well, Jake, I gotta say thank you very much for joining me here for this short discussion. PogoChamp
Thanks
is
for
out
having
on,
me.
Yeah, it's out on Steam. Is it anywhere else or just Steam right now?
Just Steam for now.
Okay. I guess last question. Any idea of or any plans, I should say, of putting this on anything else, or are you kind of just let's get Steam and then, or let's hit 1.0 and then start to?
Right now, just focusing on Steam, but depending on sort of the reception and whether people are asking for it, could port it to other stores or even other platforms. But that's if people sort of take notice of it.
All right. Well, I hope everyone listening takes notice of it, because it is the ultimate of the, or at least current ultimate of the I have 5 minutes to spare in between Zoom meetings. I'm going to play this game. So you can check out PogoChamp on Steam, and yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
This podcast was a production of the SWW Show. To learn more, go to theswwshow.com. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter at the SWW Show. You can follow me at Mikey_Maroney. You can follow AJ at LowSeatBoy. Remember, new episodes premiere on Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time on anchor.fm/SWW and podcast services around the globe.